Welcome everybody to Health Info tonight. Dr. Naturopathic Dr. Melisa is doing a flu and cold season speech. As you can see, staying healthy during the season. And it's all yours. Thank you.
Hello. Thank you for spending this evening with me today. I know it's a bit cold outside. I brought my tea. That's what this is. It looks like something else, but kind of tea. It's apple cinnamon. Green tea. So I tend to like being standing over here, but I have to switch the slides over here, so that's why I'm moving more towards this side. Yeah.
That's right.
So if you need me to talk louder, just let me know. Like Rick said, we're going to talk about cold and flu, and you probably got sent this little poster around to your email. Well, it's a bit deceiving because it says on it how I'm going to tell you why you may be a target for cold and flu, which is true, how to prevent yourself from getting sick, which isn't true, because everyone should get a cold or flu once or twice a year. So that's the kind of where I lie to you a little bit. And then the last part is we're going to talk a bit about how to, if you do get sick, when you do get sick, to reduce the severity, the length of time you're sick, some things you can do to help your immune system. If you guys have any questions, write them down, and then we'll have a question and answer period at the end, so I can answer anything. And I brought some props here today, so I'll show you some of the products that I use with my patients or that I use myself. All right? So the way that I set out this presentation, in the beginning we're going to talk a little bit about naturopathic medicine, just so we're all on the same page about what I do, the modalities that I use. And then we're going to move more into cold and flu, some definitions, some symptom stuff, a little bit about the immune system, but not a lot because there's a lot there that you can talk about the immune system. And then in the end we're going to go over each of the naturopathic modalities and how I would treat someone, some tips and tricks that you guys can use at home. All right? Let's get started. So what is naturopathic medicine? Some of you may see a naturopathic practitioner here in Thunder Bay. There's a few of us around now, and there's a few more coming in the next couple of years. Basically, I like to tell people that naturopathic medicine is the old and the new. So we take the traditional medicines, the botanicals, the Chinese medicine, things that have been around for thousands of years, and we use that knowledge and we combine it with the most recent scientific evidence. So we get the best of both worlds, I like to say. So we tend to do treatments that are individualized instead of grouping a set of people together, like everyone that has diabetes, this is what we give them. It's based on the individual person, because there's a lot of factors in there that make up that person that might affect their health. So we do a lot of individualized things, and we treat the whole person. And when we say that, it's not just the physical, it's the mental, emotional, spiritual. You notice today that I'm talking a lot about the physical, because when you have acute things like cold and flu, that's mostly what you're working with, but with chronic diseases and things like that, we tend to focus more on the spiritual and emotional type things. So naturopathic doctors, I'm highly educated. I suppose that's what the slide says. I went to school for 8 years, so I have an undergraduate degree for 4 years from Lakehead, and then I went to Toronto and did a 4-year postgraduate naturopathic medical school. And in that school, we do, the first 2 years are all the sciences. I call them the ologies, the physiology, biology. We do, chemistry is not really an ology, embryology, radiology, pharmacology. So we do all that stuff. But then we also do the naturopathic modalities, so the nutrition and the botanicals and the nutraceuticals and Asian medicine. So we'll go into those in a bit more detail. So the naturopathic principles, these are our guiding principles, just like MDs have the Hippocratic Oath. We have the naturopathic principles, and we both start with the same one, which is first do no harm. So what that means to a naturopathic doctor is we tend to start with the least aggressive form of treatment, and we work to the more aggressive. So we start a lot with the foundations of a healthy lifestyle. So diet, exercise, sleep, stress management. Those are my 4 foundations that I work with. And then we add to that, and we get more aggressive if we need to. So I identifying and treating the cause. So I like to use myself as an example a lot of times. I don't have a rash right now, but I usually have a rash on my arm. There's a little spot left there. So if I were to go to a medical doctor, he would give me maybe some hydrocortisone cream to treat that, which would work. It would take away the itching, it would make the rash go away, but it would come back. And the reason that it would come back is because I'm allergic to milk. And when I have milk, it always comes back. So what we need to do instead is look at the root cause. So it's my digestive system that we need to work with, and we need to kind of get that working more efficiently, and then the rashes will be gone forever. So supporting and healing power of nature. So we use the body's own mechanisms to help us heal. And so with cold and flu, I like to use the example of fever. So a fever is the body's natural way of getting rid of a virus, because viruses don't like warm environments. So your body temperature raises to try and kill off some of the viruses and help out your immune system. So we'll talk a little bit about the fever later in the presentation and how high we want a fever to go and how high it is dangerous after. But that's one of the body's natural mechanisms. Treating the whole person, so like I said earlier, we're not just looking at one thing, so just my arm with the rash, we're looking at the whole person, but we're also looking at, well, yeah, I have a dairy allergy, but maybe there's some issues with food, so it's an emotional issue, that type of thing, so looking at that. Doctor as teacher, this is one of my most favorite principles. In my previous life, I was an outdoor educator, so I taught a lot of high school students. And it's our job as a naturopathic doctor, and the root word of the word doctor is a Latin docere, which means to teach. And so we're a resource for patients. So we give them any information they need about their health, wellness, when they're making decisions for, a lot of people are talking to me about flu shots. So I give them both sides of the story. What's the benefit of the flu shot? What is the downfall of the flu shot? What's the benefit of naturopathic treatment? What's the downfall of naturopathic treatment for cold and flu? So that's kind of, I'm the teacher and I just provide information and resources for patients. And last but not least, this is one thing that might be lacking in our healthcare system is disease prevention and health promotion. So preventing things from happening. So putting our resources into the before stages instead of putting them in the after stages when people are already sick. So these are the therapies we use. Lifestyle counseling, talking to people about stress management, about quitting smoking, the stages of change we talk a lot about, because things just don't happen overnight. So it's a process. Nutrition counseling, so that could be diet or using supplements, nutraceuticals, botanical, herbs, teas, tinctures, which I brought, which are liquids, extractions of the herbs. Homeopathy, I'm not going to go too much into this, but it's a type of energy medicine, and it is based on the premise of like cures like. If anyone has more questions about that, we can talk about it later. Physical medicine, so we learned something called naturopathic manipulation, but it's basically chiropractic manipulation. We do spine, neck, leg, feet, ankles, things like that. But we also use water, so hot and cold saunas, hydrotherapy, steam inhalations, needler massage, use of machines like ultrasound. And then the last is traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture, which if you don't know what that is, but I'm sure all of you possibly do, just the use of needles and inserting them in different points of the body and moving things like qi from an Eastern perspective. From a Western perspective, it's more of a physiological response when your body sees a foreign object in it. So it draws attention to that area. So we'll get more into cold and flu. So what's the definition of cold and flu? When I looked up cold and flu, it said the same thing. So it's most often an infection of the upper respiratory tract infection. So it starts usually in your nose or your throat, sometimes in your ears, and that's kind of how it gets in. Both cold and flu, there's at least 200 types of each. So there's the flu virus and the cold virus. The most common of the cold virus is the rhinovirus, which is fitting because usually your nose is red and And usually a cold lasts 7 to 10 days. So it tends to be a bit shorter than the flu, whereas the flu can last up to 12 days. And their viruses are a bit different, and they're classified by A and B, but there's still 200 of them. And that's when you have like H1N1, A, B, C, no C, A and B. So the symptoms. This will tell you a little bit more about cold and flu. So colds tend to stay in the upper area. So you get that nasal discharge, you get a cough, a sore throat, sore ears, headaches, but they tend to stay upwards. Whereas when you get the flu, this is how you can differentiate if it is the flu. Most likely you're going to have the body aches, you're going to have the fever, the chills, the sweats. So it's more of a systemic type thing. So one thing though, the exception to this is usually fevers are only with flus. In small children, that's the exception. They sometimes get fevers when they get colds. And the reason is they have a weaker immune system. Their immune system is kind of building at that stage, and so they're affected a bit differently. So what causes cold or flu? Well, we know it's the viruses, and the viruses are most often around at this time of year, and it's because they like the colder temperatures. So they like the decreased humidity and the cold temperatures of fall and winter. The incubation period. So everyone talks about how long is a cold or flu contagious once you get it. Well, it can be anywhere from 12 hours to 5 days, depending on the specific virus. And you never know usually which virus that you have of the 200 cold viruses or the 200 flu viruses. The most common, though, is 48 hours. So once you start sneezing and you have that sore throat, you're contagious. And the way people get the flu is because they have that decreased immune system due to things like stress or diet, and then they have that exposure to the virus. So this is the one slide I have on the immune system. It's just a brief overview. But basically, the immune system is the protection of the body. It's the army that gets deployed when a virus invades. So you have the antibodies and white blood cells are some of the cells that go and go to the front lines and attack. So the white blood cells you actually see, you might not know this, but when you have that discharge and it turns a color, that's your dead white blood cells. So they've attacked these viruses and then they're exiting the body. Antibodies go in and neutralize. Also, the immune system has this great system where it goes around and takes a picture of the virus that invades. And the reason it does that is so it has a snapshot of this virus if it comes back again. And it knows right away, hey, wait, you've been here before, you're bad. We're going to get there sooner and faster because we know. So when you have an impaired immune system, due to stress, diet, various diseases cause that, you might lack the ability to deploy your men or women fast enough in your body, your white blood cells, or you might not have the ability to, the flash is broken on your picture, so you can't take that picture of the virus. So that's kind of a brief overview of the immune system and how it works with a virus and cold. So what do we do with naturopathic medicine? What are our goals, our treatment goals? Well, the main one, like I said before, is prevention, but I also mentioned that you should get sick at least once or twice a year, and that's your body's immune system getting practice. So when I say you should get sick once or twice a year, usually it's the change of seasons, the fall and the spring, and it shouldn't last that long, 5 days. You shouldn't have any residual effects if your immune system is working properly. So one thing that we do is we do prevention, so strengthening the immune system, and we talk a lot about host terrain. So what the host terrain is you and I are both, say we work at the same place, we go to the same grocery store, but I get sick 5 times a year and you get sick once like you're supposed to. What's the difference between you and me? We're being exposed to the same viruses. Well, it's the host terrain. So the terrain inside my body is not up to par, whereas hers is. So we work a lot with the host terrain. And so then also we have treatment during an infection, supporting the body's healing mechanisms, like that fever, or your body's ability trying to get things out, like the mucus and things like that. And dealing with symptoms, things like if you're not sleeping, you need that sleep for restoration. So if we need to, we might give you something to help you sleep. So these are the modalities that we use. We talked a bit about them before. But one thing that I want to point out on the slide is the bottom. A lot of the modalities I'm going to be talking to you about, I just want to make sure before you try any of them that you talk to your primary healthcare physician, your doctor, your acupuncturist, your pharmacist, if you are on medications, just to make sure they don't interact or interfere with any of that. And I actually also work in a pharmacy. I'm a naturopathic doctor and I'm a pharmacist assistant, so I get to see both sides of the story. And pharmacists are pretty good. They have their resources and they can see what interacts when you're taking different herbs and things like that. So first and foremost, lifestyle counseling. So these are the signs that are up. I know on the Toronto subway they have these signs about sneezing in your arm. But the first one is washing your hands. So I don't necessarily, hand sanitizer is around all over the place, and it's a good thing to use, but you don't need to use it a lot. Before you eat, if you try not to touch your face a lot. If you're, like I'm touching the desk, and I'm going to try not to touch my face after that, or wash my hands before I do. And that stops the spread, because it's the droplets that come off of someone's cough or sneeze that spreads the virus. We go to the grocery store and we're pushing a cart that someone sneezed on, and then we get in the car and we're so hungry we just grab something out of the bag and eat it. Then that's when we're kind of contracting it. So avoiding smoking or exposure to secondhand smoke, because that can irritate the passages, your nasal passage in your throat, and that makes you more susceptible to an infection or a virus invading. Cleaning surfaces in your house. So if someone else is sick in your house, or if you're at work, just cleaning those surfaces, keyboards, your telephone if you have a home phone that everyone uses, doorknobs, things like that, just cleaning them once a week, or if someone's sick, maybe once a day. And also, I talk a lot about the pillars of health with my patients in the first few visits. So just what you're eating and putting in your body. It's like they say, what you eat is what you are. So if you're eating lots of vitamins and minerals, you have that in your body. If you're eating lots of junk food and fat and sugar, that's kind of what's in your body. So maintaining those good lifestyle, healthy eating habits, drinking a lot of fluids to kind of flush the toxins out. Exercise. Exercise, you have this whole network of lymphatic tissue and vessels in your body, but they're not like the blood vessels. They don't have the heart to pump the fluids around. So exercise is actually what contracts the muscles and gets the fluid moving and around. And so that's part of your immune system, which moves the white blood cells around. So exercise is good. But again, I find when I go to the gym, I usually go for like a New Year's resolution, go for a week, and that's when I usually get sick. And it's because people are using the machines, they're sweating on them, and then I touch them and then brush my hair out of my face. So that's one thing to watch for as well. Sleep, really important. Sleep's the time for your body to repair and restore itself. And if you're not getting enough sleep, there's a hormone called cortisol that's increasing and also increases with stress. And so that can suppress your immune system. So it stops it from working because your body's so busy dealing with the situation at hand, the fight or flight situation. Last one, stress management. I talked a bit about stress and cortisol, but everyone has stress in your life. It's just how you deal with it. So finding ways that work for you. So the next is nutritional stuff. So prevention is more maintaining a well-balanced diet, eating lots of fruits and vegetables, avoiding foods that you might be sensitive to. So there's a lot of talk about wheat out there right now, so maybe I'll pick on wheat a bit. But maybe if you're sensitive to wheat, your immune system's already really active dealing with that sensitivity on a daily basis because you're eating it. So it doesn't have the resources to go to a virus that's invaded your body. So find out if you have any sensitivities. You can do that by avoiding it, say, for a week and seeing if that changes anything, or you can go and see someone who can test for these things. Also, any processed, refined, sugary foods. Sugar is found to suppress the immune system. So that's one thing to avoid, and the refined. Sugar also and dairy kind of go hand in hand with mucus production. So if you have a really thick mucus, you're not able to get that out of your body, and that's your body's way of getting rid of, like I said, those white blood cells. So these are some things that you can supplement with if you are sick or for prevention. So vitamin D, I usually tell patients from Victoria Day to Labor Day, because where we live, the latitude, yes, we get a lot of sunshine. We're covered up when we go outside in the winter, but also the angle of the rays isn't sufficient enough to produce that vitamin D that's in our skin that we need to help our immune system. And then vitamin C, everyone talks about vitamin C in cold and flu. So vitamin C, I think it's about 300 reactions in your body use vitamin C. So it's one of those things that's good for immunity. It's also good for wound healing, collagen. So I tell people to have vitamin C 1,000 milligrams and try and get the kind without the sugar, and have that every hour. Side effect of too much vitamin C, because it's a water-soluble vitamin, is your body will try and get it out of your body, which is you'll get diarrhea. So that's one thing to watch for. You just know that you've had your tolerance. Some people, their tolerance is 1,000. Other people can take 10,000 and they're fine. So it just depends on the body. And then zinc. So I have zinc lozenges here. And so these are actually zinc and echinacea. So zinc helps with soothing the throat. But also you can take a supplement of zinc and use it preventatively. But one thing about zinc is you have to watch copper levels as well, and so you might find a supplement that balances zinc and copper, because if you take too much zinc without copper, it depletes the copper. So this is just a vitamin D drop that I brought. It's 1,000 per drop, so it's easy to take. One thing also I haven't mentioned yet, but your digestive system is also a huge part of your immune system. So you have something called GALT, or gut-associated lymphatic tissue, and it's all throughout your digestive system. So keeping that healthy and your digestive system healthy is also a key to having a great immune system. So I brought some probiotics, just that helps keep your immune system balanced. And so next is botanical medicine. So there's hundreds of thousands of plants out there that can be used for cold and flu purposes. So I brought a few in today. The two that I use more for prevention are the Deep Immune by St. Francis and the Change of Season Soup. So Change of Season Soup is more of a TCM, so traditional Chinese medicine remedy, and they usually do that in the spring and the fall, kind of the flu and cold season. And the Change of Season Soup, I had a roommate that made it for me once, and it was about this color, and it has 4 things in it. And you can go to Toronto, you can go to Chinatown and buy them. But one of them is astragalus, which is also in the Deep Immune, and then Codonopsis, which is another kind of Asian medicine herb mushroom. And then there's 2 others. But then this is the Deep Immune, and it has the astragalus, reishi mushroom, ginseng, and that type of thing. So it helps not necessarily stimulate your immune system, but it's kind of like nutrition for your immune system, helps tone it. It's kind of like exercising your immune system and giving it the things it needs to work the best when it is presented with a virus. So some other herbs that are out there, echinacea, golden seal, they're kind of the antiviral, antibacterial type herbs. Another one that I use that has all of those in is antiviral here by Natural Factors. And this one is more stimulating your immune system, saying, hey, let's go, there's someone here that shouldn't be here. We need to take action. And, pardon?
Which one is that?
This is called antiviral. It has echinacea in it and a bit of golden seal.
Homemade?
Yeah, yeah, it has a few different things. And again, both of these have licorice in it, which if you have blood pressure issues, licorice will affect that. That's why I say go and talk to your, they have some of these at Shoppers Drug Mart. Pharmacist will talk to you about that. And the last two I like to put in there, oil of oregano and garlic. Garlic, you can have 1 raw clove of garlic. If you have a raw clove, you just eat it like that. It can give you a bit of stomach irritation. It's really hard on your stomach. But make a salad dressing, chop it up, don't cook it, put it on your salad, and that's a way to incorporate it into eating. Also oil of oregano, which I brought today. The way that I tell people to put it is 2 drops under their tongue, because there's no taste buds under there. It's very potent, yes. If it's too potent for people, I say put it in a little shot glass of water, and then just, yeah.
I put it in lemon juice.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea. Lemon's also good for your sugar. So, and these are just some lozenges that I brought that are more herbal than some of the other ones. Yes, they can be. But they are just a demulcent. They have slippery elm, which kind of coats your throat and soothes it a bit.
May I ask you, is that vitamin C, is it only with vitamin C? Because they have a new product, last year, New Roots, vitamin C in that little 8, so they have the echinacea, the quercetin and rutin and all that for better absorption.
Yeah.
So I found that is a better one than the one from Swiss. I totally switched over to the New Roots brand.
I haven't looked into that specific product, but it sounds like a combination of various vitamin C
Very good.
and inflammatory.
Yeah.
So the next is homeopathy. So there's different ways of using homeopathy, but basically there's the complex homeopathics, which have a little bit of everything in them. So they kind of work on the symptoms that you're showing. So if you have a fever with cold sweat and you're restless, that might be one symptom and one plant that's in there. Or it might be that you have hot sweats and you're always hot, but your feet are cold, and you want to drink cold water. So that might be another symptom for a different remedy. So I'm not going to say this correctly because it's really hard to say, oscillococcinum, which is from Boiron, is a complex homeopathic. And basically what they do is they figure out which it's from a cold and flu virus, and they put it in the little pellets. And so they say to take it once you have the first symptoms of cold and flu, and it'll reduce the severity and the length of cold and flu. And it comes, I have these ones in these little things. The thing about homeopathy, you don't have to take the whole vial. Like, you can just take a couple little things of it, and then you have these for a long time. They last a long time, so you don't have to keep buying it. So that's one of them. They have the top one, the oscillococcinum, is more for flu, or the I can't really say that one, is more for cold symptoms. So the upper respiratory, cough, sore throat, runny nose, eyes. And then there's another company, Heal, that has Grip Heal. And again, these are all, you look on the box and see what symptoms you have and see which one matches best those symptoms. And they're more for reducing the severity. Some people use the oscillococcinum to prevent cold and flu, so they'll take it throughout the cold and flu season. And then you have single homeopathics. So these are these ones where it's just one thing in here, whereas those have probably multiples of these in them. So this is allium cepa, which is onion. And allium cepa is if you have like a burning nasal discharge but nothing from the eyes, whereas euphrasia is more for eyes, and the actual name of euphrasia is eye bright, so that can kind of lead you to that. Things from eyes that are burning as opposed to nose. And then arsenic album is used for if you're weak, cold, restless. And there's hundreds of homeopathic remedies, and they can all be used for various symptoms and things like that. And there's books that list all the symptoms, and you just find one that best matches your picture. So that's kind of a short synopsis of homeopathy and just a few things that you could use from it.
It's enough fun, but increases your, when you have anemia, increases the red blood cells.
Homeopathy?
Yeah, I got it in New Zealand.
Oh, did
Somebody
you?
gave it to me, and it is from homeopathy,
Oh, is it?
but I can't find it up here.
Oh, no. It's different in different, like, they use...
It has fer something in it.
Uh-huh.
Not fer in French, it's iron.
Mm-hmm. They use a lot in Europe, so it's really popular there. It's less so here, so you might not be able to find it. Yeah. So this is the physical medicine. So what I chose to focus on is more the hydrotherapy, the use of hot or cold. So warming socks treatment. This is a favorite of a lot of people. Not really. Basically what you do is you take a pair of cotton socks and a pair of wool socks. And what this is for is if you have any congestion, so the stuffy nose, the headache, before you go to bed, you run the cotton socks under cold water. And then you wring them out, you walk over to your bed, and you put them on. So we like to call it warming socks treatment. I call it wet cold socks treatment because that's what you're putting on your foot. But what ends up happening is you put the wool socks over top, the dry wool socks, and then you go to bed and you cover yourself and your feet. And by midnight and the morning, your feet will be really, really warm, and it improves the circulation and causes anything up here to be pulled down. And so you do that usually for 3 nights in a row, and it'll clear all the stuff out of your sinuses. So the next one is a steam shower, and this is just using the premise of the fever. So heating your body up to a higher temperature because those viruses don't like the higher temperatures. So you go into have a hot shower, and then you wrap yourself in warm pajamas and go to bed and get your rest. And that can help to get rid of it faster. Steam inhalation, you have a lot of congestion. So you've all probably done this. I've done this. You put hot water, put some sort of aromatherapy in it, eucalyptus, they say thyme, you can maybe use oil of oregano, menthol. Also saltwater gargle. So the salt water helps to kill any of the viruses that are in your throat, but also it can be soothing to the throat. And there's lots of other things you can do, like for prevention-wise, I tell people to do contrast showers, which means you do 15 minutes in a hot shower, so maybe you're in your shower washing your hair and doing everything that you need to do. And then you turn the water on for 1 minute of cold. And then you go back. And this just gives your immune system a boost and gets it working. You can do it with saunas as well. Sauna 15 minutes, one minute cold shower to bring your temperature down. And that just gets your immune system working. Or have saunas in the winter and run out of snow. Yeah. So I'm not going to talk a lot about traditional Chinese medicine because it's based on the individual picture of the person. So in Chinese medicine there is qi, and wei qi is the qi that protects your body. So it's there to prevent the viruses from getting in, but when it's down from various things, like again, stress is a big one, you can be invaded by these pathogens. So some treatments can go to strengthening your wei qi, or they can be more symptom relief, so they can get rid of nasal congestion. Bitong is one of the points, where you put the needles in here and you thread them up towards your nose, and that relieves any congestion that's in your sinuses. Another one, headaches, congestion in your head. You probably have used this acupressure point, but you can put needles, that's Li4, and that will help with headaches and congestion. Also balancing the respiratory system. In Chinese medicine, this part here, like the back of your neck, that's called the wind gate, and that's usually where they say pathogens enter. And so points on there are for the respiratory system to strengthen the lungs. And the last one, so those UB, urinary bladder, 11, 12, 13, 14 points are all on the neck, and it's helping with that. The doorway. And then lung 7 is on your arm here. And that one, again, is strengthening your lungs, your lung system. All right. So that's all I have for you. Might have been a lot of information packed in a short period of time. But we'll go with some questions. Go ahead.
Well, I'm just wondering, you talk about hot showers. You live in the city, you're getting a lot of chlorine from that water, are you not? So
Yeah,
how do
and
you
that's,
avoid that?
that's one thing that they say about showers, and because when you have a shower, you're heating up that water and the chlorine vaporizes, and so you're breathing that in, whereas if you're not having a shower and you're having a bath, you can get filters for your shower head. It might be a bit more difficult if you live in the country. I know my parents have a lot of iron in their water and it just gets clogged right away. But there are filter systems that you can buy to have that, the chlorine taken out of your shower.
Yeah, but the iron wouldn't bother you in the water, would it?
No, just meaning clogging the filter system if you do get one of those. Yeah. Yes.
That's supposed to be Gmail.
Yep. Yep. The M and the A, yeah, the Traveling India Gmail, and you all have my business cards, which have it on there as well.
Victoria, I remember that. Are you in this Dr. Schroeder?
Yes. Yeah. Any other questions about anything? Go ahead.
The chiropractic up there, is that the one that a lot of people use? The natural health? I've
Natural
seen
Health
it.
and Chiropractic?
Yeah.
That's
Well,
right.
it's actually been around for 20 years. I think it's actually been in that area as well. But it's a small building and people tend to miss it. It's right by the health food store in Victoriaville.
Yeah.
And it's just down from Gleason Clinic. That's what people...
That's Brian Schrader's
Yeah.
office.
Brian's place, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And we have a naturopath, we have a massage therapist, we have a chiropractor, we have a lab, we have a gym and saunas and things like that. So,
You have a gym and sauna there?
yep, in the basement.
Ask
Wow.
Rick about it.
Yeah.
Rick goes to the saunas, right, Rick?
Yeah, it's a far infrared.
Yeah.
Wow.
Are you familiar with the Yarrow?
Yes,
Yeah, because I know, boy, has that ever knocked the flu out of you?
does it?
Oh, man. I was sick about a month ago, went out camp there, and I'm telling you, I could hardly walk. I was dizzy, and I was thinking, I should get some Yarrow. And our girl, I used it for her before.
Yep.
She was really sick, and I got up and I was sitting on the chair, and she's, here's some medicine for you. And I chewed on a few pieces of that, and in a couple hours I was out helping load the boat, and I drove home. By 10 o'clock that night, I had no symptoms at all, and I was real sick, I was just
What was it? I missed it.
Yarrow.
Yeah.
It was all over the place, yeah. Just either make tea or chew some of it. Hard to take, but
The other one is Hydrastis gold seal that tends to be around a lot. That's another one that you can use.
Use a lot of that, but I would use Yarrow.
So when you say that you should get sick a couple of times a year, and the
Yeah.
gentleman just spoke about him getting sick, but he was able to ward it off, that count as getting sick? Because, if you're trying to prevent being ill, you're usually applying your prevention at the onset of some symptoms. So technically you are sick,
Yeah, that is.
but you are minimizing your symptoms
Yeah.
by whacking it with a whole bunch of
Yeah,
stuff.
that's what I mean. Yeah. So once you have that onset, that's your body testing its immune system. There's a virus, and then you can start to treat it. Like I use the oil of oregano. If I can feel my my throat getting a bit scratchy, then I'll use the oil of oregano, and it tends to kind of get rid of it.
I use the same.
Unless I eat a lot of sugar, then it
I
tends to come
don't
back.
use sugar, I only use some honey.
Yeah.
And if I use sugar, I found what they use in Indonesia, the coconut tree, they make sugar from that. And we used to use that in Indonesia all the time. And now I found it here, of all places, it's not Winners, but the other one, Home Sense. I thought, wow, it's not cheap, too, they are careful.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
Winners has it too.
Yeah, as things get more and more
Natural.
popular.
They haven't fought it
Tend
out
to
too
find
much
it.
with it like the other sugar they do.
Yeah. Yeah.
what is your background? Because you said that this is your second career, then you must have a third one too because you're working as a chemist.
Well, I started out, I went to school I did outdoor rec at Lakehead and geography, so I have an arts degree. And so I worked in the outdoor education guiding fields in Ontario and BC. So that was kind of my natural world. Also my family, I come from a family of nurses, so every single female in my family is a nurse. My aunt, my mom, both my grandmas, and so I grew up, my mom would go to work, we'd go with her, and then my grandma would take us home. So we'd spend the time in the medical field, and so I finished my undergraduate degree, and I knew that I wanted to be a doctor, but I was ready to kind of commit to formal school. So then I finished working for 5 years in the outdoor fields. You tend to get burnt out because you're working all the time. And then I went on to Toronto. Luckily, one of the women I was working with started 2 years earlier than me, so I got to talk to her about it and found that that's something that I wanted to do. And that was my second career. And then I got back to Thunder Bay in June, so I just started practicing here in June. And it's not too busy in the beginning, so I ended up applying to a pharmacy, which I was a little bit apprehensive because I come from a naturopathic background. Like, do I want to be handing people their medication? However, when you're in school, you're submerged in this natural health kind of bubble, and that kind of brought me out of that bubble and saw kind of what's going on more in the Western medical field and kind of what's going on in Thunder Bay, not being here in the last couple of years. And so it gave me a foundation in that. And yes, people are on medications, and yes, I'm okay with medications. In BC, naturopathic doctors are actually allowed to prescribe medications. Yeah, this was just when I graduated last year, that's when it started. I was before I came home here. And so they're working towards that in Ontario, and the reason they're doing that is because we're more of a primary healthcare provider. Like, we learn lab diagnosis and things like that, and we do the pharmacology, but we aren't able to order the lab tests or prescribe the drugs, like the acute things. We're not going to be prescribing chemotherapeutics or things like that. It's more of the antibiotics. If the natural medicines we're using aren't working, then we can move on to something a bit more stronger. And that's the least aggressive to more aggressive kind of thing.
That's my
Yeah.
Do you have a little bit of conflict with your nurse sisters?
No. My family didn't really know what naturopathic, no one really knew what naturopathic medicine was in my family, and I didn't even know when I started. But gave my dad a few websites to go to visit, and they understand what it is. And yeah. Once people understand what it is and know what it is, they tend to be more on board with it. It's the unknown that people fear, and that's when you have a lot of the conflict.
I was a nurse too.
Actually, how long did you go to school to be a naturopath?
4 years. You have to have an undergraduate degree, and then 4 years postgraduate.
So how do you compare them to a medical doctor? I know you're a naturopathic doctor, but how, like, mainstream?
What do you mean?
Education-wise?
Education-wise, I have this sheet of paper that I can email to you guys if you want, but basically it breaks down. It has and it's American because they tend to have more resources to putting these things together, but it basically breaks down what naturopathic medical schools do, like the foundation sciences and the modalities and treatments and nutrition and pharmacology stuff. But then they also have the MD schools. I think it was Johns Hopkins and one in Wisconsin and Yale. And what they do in school, how many hours, how many practicum hours, that type of thing. And then some of the online natural schools and what they do. And so it compares, and we're comparable to MD school. We have pretty much, from my understanding, we have the same science backgrounds, like the pharmacology, like the anatomy, physiology, embryology, radiology, all that type of stuff. It's where we differ is in our treatment section. And we do more on nutrition, say, than they do, but they might do a little bit more in pharmacology.
I think this is more trying to prevent things, and the doctors trying to cure it, just running behind the
Well,
medicine.
it's a different perspective, and
Yes.
I like to say that naturopathic does really well with chronic diseases, but if you're having an asthma attack, you're going to go to the emergency room. Whereas the modern medicine and scientific community is better at the really acute, like car accidents and asthma attacks and things like that. So they can do really well with that, whereas we don't. So we kind of complement each other in that respect.
You make more money when people are sick, you make more money while people are healthy.
Yes.
Trying to keep
And we
them
just
healthy.
have to change the mentality of people to more of, instead of sick care, I like to call it sick care instead of health care, to more of a health care mentality.
So like in China, the medicine in China, they get paid to keep people healthy. If
Yeah.
they get sick, they don't get paid.
Yeah, we need to do that.
The reason why I asked is because you still have to pay for your fees where it's not recognized by the government
Yeah.
financially.
Yeah, and
For us out here.
yeah, and it's naturopathic medicine has a long history. It started in Europe, moved over to the United States and up to Canada. And back in the day, whenever that was, the 1900s or what have you, there was actually a report called the Flexner Report. We learned about it in school. And that's kind of when it changed from being more of the traditional medicine to more of the scientific medicine. And that's when the medical MDs got the physical body and the church got kind of the spiritual, emotional type section, and there was that split. And that's when they shut down. There used to be a lot of naturopathic hospitals, and they shut them down. So from that, it's kind of been ebbing and flowing, and as people either get fed up with the healthcare system or they're not feeling that they're being heard, then they start to move more towards the natural realm. But also, it's becoming more popular because people are seeing the benefits of it as well. Yeah.
That's one thing that's good about the doctors or the MDs is that the government recognizes it, and that's why the politicians are getting what they deserve from the doctors.
What do you mean by that?
They're getting treated by them.
Yes. And as it becomes more recognized, I know this past election there was a lot of talk in the naturopathic community about who we were going to vote for, because there was a question put out to all the parties and how they would integrate naturopathic medicine, because we're transitioning now in Ontario from the board that governs us, so the board that protects people that we're registered with, like our malpractice, that type of thing, is switching over from what they are to a new board and college, kind of like the College of Physicians and Surgeons. And so there's a lot of change going on now in the naturopathic community. So there's a lot going on politically as well. And depending on what happens there, naturopathic medicine might become more prominent or it might become less. And I would like to have it where people are able to choose a practitioner, because it's about the health of the individual and them having the choice of what they want to do and having access to everything, not
So they
just...
have to educate them, so they know what to choose.
Yeah, education is key.
If they never heard of this, then they run to a doctor.
Well, that's why I'm here.
Yes, I think it's
Plant
fantastic.
seeds in people's heads.
Right.
Yep.
How much time do you spend on nutrition compared to a doctor? I know they don't spend any, they spend negative time on nutrition.
It's, like I said, it's one of the pillars of health, and I've been reading a lot on nutrition lately. A woman named Chris Carr I've been reading. But it's, people aren't making the connections of what they put on their body and how it affects them. And the food that we eat does affect the diseases. 70% of the diseases out there are due to lifestyle choices, which is diet, exercise, stress management, and things like choosing if you're going to smoke or not. So 70% of diseases. The other part is more genetics. But yeah. That's a
Food
huge
contamination.
number. Food contamination.
And through fertilizers, herbicides, insecticides, preservatives. Takes your food and just destroys its natural value.
Well, they tend to, Chris Carr, the woman that I mentioned earlier, she tends to talk a lot about if it's made in a laboratory, it takes a laboratory to digest it. So they take our food to make it, they strip all the nutrients of it to make it more of a shelf life, but then they add them back in at the end. But our body doesn't recognize that as well as if it was in its natural state. No, it won't stay on the shelf as long as before, but yeah.
I hear they're putting all kinds of, well, I see they're putting canola oil in everything, and that's a genetically modified rapeseed oil, and apparently they're even taking it out of the peanut butter, out of the peanuts, they're making the peanut butter outer and substituting the canola oil in it, because they're using the peanut oil for pretty bad.
It's not good. As long as they're labeling it so people know what they're getting, and that's a thing.
Well, lots of times they just put omega-3 oils on it. They just
Yeah.
put omega-3s, like even Hellman's is advertising made with good omega-3 based oils or something. I mean, that's like saying, well, rubbing alcohol is the same as Crown Royal.
Yeah.
Let's drink it, you know. Like,
Yeah, and the new buzzword in advertising is natural, or omega-3s is a big one. Like they have Oreos with omega-3s, but the first ingredient is still sugar. So I just educate people on, yeah, that's there and it's natural, but look, even some of the organic natural products, like I like these cookies called Katos. They're organic, they're gluten-free, they're dairy-free. Basically, they're Oreo cookies, but they're
There's no
natural.
fructose.
Yeah.
First thing I read, if it's fructose and
Mhm.
glucose and fructose together, it's really poison.
But the thing is, it's also moderation, so you're not going to completely avoid these things. You're going out for dinner with business people, or you're going over to your friend's house, you're not going to turn your nose up at the food that they're cooking you. Everything in moderation. So that's the key to
Reading labels.
Yeah.
When you talk about education, one of the things that I think we could, as a society, benefit from is educating at a younger age.
Yes.
And educating as part of our secondary school system. I think we would be going a lot further in the maintenance of our health and decreasing the reliance on our sick care system.
Teach them prevention.
Yeah, and a lot of that is, you're seeing some of it now, like, if we get these things on TV and these issues, kind of, that's where kids are, they're watching TV, they're playing computer games, they're on the internet, more than they're outside. So if we kind of plant the seed there and kind of get them away from that, the TVs and outside, and then maybe we can, yeah.
Well, when I went to high school, I took foods and nutrition. I mean, there's no reason why we can't have that as part of our curriculum. How to treat cold.
Exercise, foods and nutrition, like, people don't know how to cook anymore either. So I remember taking home ec and learning how to make a pie or make something there. The kids they don't know how to do that anymore. So you're right, introducing it into the school system.
They have no home ec in school.
No home ec, no exercise. Yep.
Are there any particular combinations of vitamins and herbs that you would say totally avoid because they have a canceling factor? Is there anything that you would say don't do those two or those elements together?
At the top of my head, I can't think of anything, but you have to kind of look at, if people have a well-balanced diet, their digestive system is working really well, then I don't say that anyone needs to really supplement anything with any vitamins or minerals, because you're getting it from your food. Whereas if you're not...
Organic food, where is it grown? How long was it on road?
Well, there's
Or
organic
fertilizers.
food, but everyone can't afford organic food. So
Well,
then
you're going to be eating commercial foods which are totally contaminated.
Well, then I tell people to do the Clean 15 and the Dirty Dozen. Everyone hear about that? So basically you avoid the top 12 foods with the most pesticides. Apples are number 1 on the list. You buy those organic. And then there's the Clean 15. So the foods that may be sprayed with pesticides, and they tend to be the foods that you can peel like bananas or mangoes, avocados, as opposed to the apples or strawberries or grapes.
Don't forget the
So
broccoli.
you just choose, and ideally, yes, everyone would be eating organic foods, but then again, people aren't eating vegetables.
Grow a garden.
Yes, yes. People aren't eating vegetables, so if there's a choice of not eating vegetables and eating vegetables with pesticides, I'd have people eating vegetables with pesticides, as opposed to not eating any at all. I have patients that come in and they're tired and they can't figure out why, and, well, what do you eat? Do a diet for me. Bagel and cream cheese, bagel and cream cheese, bagel and cream cheese. Caesar salad with some chicken. So, yeah. So you need to get the variety in there.
And a lot of people, they say, oh, I eat broccoli. But they forget to wash it in lukewarm, soapy water to get all the pesticide, not all, but a lot of it off. And then rinse the daylight out of it with clear water. And you see but the dirty water, what comes out of it, and the same as grapes. They say, oh, no, lady, she said the other day, she said, oh, I love to go and grab them from the store and then pop them. I said, do you know how much junk you get in your mouth?
As well as all the people touching them with their cold.
You cut them in hand-sized pieces. I said, and you put liquid detergent, soapy water in your sink, and you rinse the daylight out of it, and then clean water. And see how dirty that water is. Because the pesticides they put on it, if you just wash them under water, they wouldn't bother, because the first rain it washes off. So you have to have, there's certain things what you can use, but I don't know that. I just use my natural liquid detergent, and it seems to work pretty good. So, amen.
Does your natural detergent, does it have sheeting agent in it, or does it? What is your natural detergent?
Your natural detergent.
I get it from, it used to be Amway.
Okay.
And, but now the ladies, I don't know where to get it. I still have a gallon, but I like the natural. And if I can't get that, well, okay, then I just use palm olive, and because you rinse it off anyway under clear water. But you should see that sink when you wash all your vegetables in soapy water.
Petrochemicals.
And the same when you have cantaloupe. You take cantaloupe and you take a brush, the soapy water, you brush it, and then you rinse it. Because if you don't, all the pesticides are on the outside. They say, oh, I wash it under water, forget it. Because the moment you have done that, you peel it, and what was on your finger is also what you eat. The same as oranges. If they don't wash them proper, they say, oh, this on the outside. Yeah, right. You peel the outside, it's on your hands, and you eat the rest with it. You still get it. So.
Do you clean it off with chlorine water?
That's the only choice you have.
I know, because you're in the park.
I use magnetized water for rinsing. My last rinse
Spring water.
magnetized water.
Just pretend it's spring.
Yeah,
Water.
right.
Just pretend.
But I think you only try as much what is available here in Thunder Bay.
I know.
Because the food what you get is already en route for so long and in storage, and what the heck they put in the soil and on the stuff.
But you can make yourself crazy thinking about all the little things. You just kind of have to.
Just try to do the best you can.
Best you
and
can
can
with what
notice.
you have.
That's why you supplement, because a lot of the foods
Yeah,
don't
I
have
believe in
anything.
supplements.
Unless you have your garden.
Unless you do yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, we were both going to ask the same thing, just where you would be giving us the information as far as flu shots are concerned, their type of preparation, are there exceptions where they in fact would be indicated, are they always contraindicated?
I can give you a little bit of information on that.
Okay.
What I tell people is individual basis. So I'm not going to say everyone needs a flu shot, everyone doesn't need the flu shot. Flu shots are really good for those that are immunocompromised, elderly, or possibly the very young. Again, individual, and it's up to the person or their caregiver to decide if that's something. What they do with the flu shot is a less of a reaction. So they put a little bit of the dead virus or attenuated virus in you. and your body reacts to that, as opposed, and it has those antibodies in there for if you get exposed to it later on, you already have the antibodies and you don't have a reaction. So it's less of a reaction. The thing about flu shots is they have all those extra things in them to preserve them. They also,
Mercury-based carriers.
yeah, so they have the extra things in them. So that's kind of the downsides. But with anything, naturopathic or the flu shot, you have that 1 in 10,000 or 1,000 shot that you're going to react to it anyway. So I don't know if I'll say this right, but Guillain-Barré syndrome is one of the side effects of getting the flu shot. While not getting a flu shot, one of the side effects is getting the flu and dying. So it depends what way. No, not all the time, and that's when you have to look at an individual basis. So there's lots of things that we can do naturopathically to strengthen the immune system and deal with the things that we have, like the stresses and that, to strengthen the immune system enough. So for the middle part of the population, where I don't necessarily think, again, individual basis, it's up to that person to decide, but strengthen their immune system. And if they do get sick, there's things that we can do to kind of minimize the symptoms and things like that. So,
well, what kind of a percentage do the manufacturers produce as far as the availability of the ingredient itself for those particularly that are compromised, without exposing them to the things like the thermoseal, those particular agents that are in it? Like, what kind of a percentage? Because I actually had to go through that with my mom. You know, it's like automatic, she's X number of years old, she's da-da-da-da-da-da, so she has to have. And I said, well, and I don't want the thermoseal with it. So, you know, that's where we got, and that's, so I'm just wondering if you have any idea, because you're in the pharmaceuticals as well.
I'm not sure. You can call any of the companies and see if they'll let you know what's in that product. You can go through some of your pharmacies and get the pharmacists. They have databases that have the ingredients of everything, if it has gluten in it, if it has dairy in it, if it has the... And some of the vaccinations you can get without that in it.
You can, but I was just wondering, in your practice now, as far as being with the pharmaceuticals, because there seemed to be a greater turnaround time, that you had to wait for it, and it wasn't convenient for staff to do this and that.
Yeah, because they don't stock it, because it's not going to last as long. It costs more money.
And it costs more money. But because there is a demand, like, is it coming up so that if it absolutely has to be used, that it can be in that kind of format?
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more getting as many people as vaccinated as possible, and it's it's about preventing people from getting sick, but it is also about making money.
One of the things about flu too is they target what they consider will be the most likely flu that will be happening. So you get this flu shot, there's 200 odd different kinds of flus you can get. Doesn't guarantee you're not going to get the flu, right?
That's correct.
You can target that particular flu, but if it doesn't show up, then you're still going to get the flu from something else.
So you can get organic, you know. You can get the organic. It's $50,000 a shot.
Yes.
Trust me, I'm really
I'm
interested.
Do you use colloidal silver at all?
I don't have much experience with. It comes up. It came up a few times in my schooling, and it tends to be a remedy that isn't used as much anymore by the newer naturopathic doctors.
Do you know a way to bring up hypothyroidism?
That's a tough one. Hypothyroidism. A lot of the people in Thunder Bay have thyroid issues, so it's something to do with our environment, something that's going on here that's kind of. Pardon?
Low iodine content?
Possibly, it could be.
You can only take one drop of iodine, otherwise you get a heart stone.
Do they know why? Like, what is?
Well, I don't know if people are recognizing that that's something that's going on. I know that I find in my practice pretty much 75% of my patients are on some sort of thyroid medication for more of hypo as opposed to hyperthyroid.
It's the highest cancer.
Is it?
But I also learned something just recently from my computer. I always looking for the natural things and all that if you take a lot of vitamin C, it will reduce the functioning of your thyroid. And I've been doing that. So, but then if you don't take enough vitamin C, then okay.
Yeah, it's again, you have to weigh the benefits and the risks, and the thing is educating yourself about both sides of the story and finding out which works best for you and your body. And you also have, people tend not to talk about this, but you have that gut feeling, and that's a part of your health as well. So going with that gut feeling, and that's the art of naturopathic medicine. So just the knowing part as opposed to the scientific.
I also found out just the same articles that I'm always allergic to tomatoes. And then they suggested you're allergic to the skin of the tomato and the seeds. If you omit those, you might not have any problems. I haven't tried it yet.
Hard thing to do.
I think it's the acid in your
As far as hypothyroidism
Yes.
is concerned, is it a certain part of the population that you're seeing it in Thunder Bay? Like a certain age group, or no, right across the board? Yeah, that's interesting.
But that being said, it's more at the pharmacy. I see obviously people there coming for their medications, but in my practice I tend to see mostly the same population of people. Thunder Bay is a little bit more varied than what it was in Toronto. So again, it's mostly women, middle-aged.
I would like to find a natural way to bring it up this way.
Well, there are things, herbs out there.
We'll see, Melissa.
Yeah.
Melissa, what is the earliest age that you would give botanical medicines or homeopathy to for these new steam?
Homeopathy, I would do,
From 0?
yeah, because homeopathy is really gentle. So it either does nothing or it does something and it helps. You can have what is called the healing crisis, where you have return of old symptoms, but in a small child, it's not necessarily that's going to happen. Botanicals is a little different. It depends on the child, what's going on. There's a really great book for kids out there. It's called Smart Medicine for Healthy Children or something like that. Robert Roundtree is one of the authors, and it's basically a book that goes through any kind of ailment that a kid would have, croup, allergies, common cold, flu's in there. And it goes through what the conventional treatment of it is. It's written by a naturopath, a medical doctor, and an acupuncturist. So it goes through the conventional treatments, what's going to go on there. It also goes through the naturopathic treatment, so it focuses on homeopathy and herbs, mostly lifestyle things, nutrition. And then it does, instead of acupuncture, it does acupressure more with kids. So that's a really good book because it gives you all of the perspectives. And any patients that I have with kids or any of my friends, they're all having babies now, I give them that book. There's also one out for adults again. It's
Smart Medicine for Children.
Smart Medicine for Healthier Children, I think it's called, and then there's a Smart Medicine for Healthier Adults or something.
Okay, could we get the title of that? Or
Yep.
can we, like
Yep.
from the office or something like that?
Yep.
Send it to Rick. Okay. Send it to Rick.
The kids one is Smart Medicine for Healthier Children.
Sorry.
Yeah, what do you think of the belief system? Because it's a huge, when you go and see people's houses in their cupboards, they got everything in the cupboard that's on TV. So that alone is telling us, and also the kids rule the parents today, like never before. So they're watching TV and then they go to the store and then everything they got in the cupboard is from what the kids ask for. And if they don't get it, then the kids don't love their parents anymore. So the parents buy them 360 machines, so they're sitting there with their fingers. And now they got finger problems. No. But anyway, what do you think of the belief system? I think it's huge myself.
Well, that's when it comes into the educating at a younger age and being in the school system. But also, like I mentioned TV, and yeah, I'm not for kids sitting in front of the TV. They need to be outside, exploring and things like that. But if that's where we're going to get them, that's where we're going to start. And we're going to put things on TV or video games and things like that. Like, you guys probably know who Jamie Oliver is, and he has his Food Revolution, where he goes into the school system, and he did a talk, a TED Talk, if you guys know what TED is, talking about that. And he's kind of the guy on TV now that's talking about nutrition getting into the school system. So that's kind of what we need to kind of change those patterns and behaviors. And we're finding now the statistic that's out there is that children are going to die younger than their parents. So once that starts coming up, hopefully people will bell will ring.
They've already started. I know a couple of people that lost their children. And but the belief system, what I mean by it, is our own belief system with our own universe, our 100 trillion cells in our body. How we talk to our body is a huge thing, isn't it? Don't you believe that?
Yep. Yep. And there's people coming out now that are, like, I know there's a woman, like I talked about Chris Carr, and she's around my age, and she's talking about the nutrition aspect. But then there's another woman called Gabrielle Bernstein. She talks more about the treating yourself well and spiritual aspect. So all this, Chris Carr again likes to say, what you think, what you drink, and what you eat. Those are the things that affect you.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm stealing all of her catchphrases.
And why are you specifically attracted to her? Because she's your age, or is there something different about her?
It's her age. If you want, I can tell you a brief synopsis of her story. She put out a documentary in 2007. It came out, but in 2003, she was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And basically, stage 4, there's no stage 5. It's a rare kind of cancer, so they couldn't do anything for her. There was no radiation, there was no chemotherapy, which is, she was kind of lucky because the only thing that the doctor said to her is what you eat and what you put in your body is something that you can do to help this. So she got scans every 3 months, and so her documentary is about this process from when she found out until a couple years later. And so, I don't want to give away the ending, but basically when she found out, she was living in New York, she was an actress, she was a bud girl for some Super Bowl ads, and she was living a certain, like, partying and that type of thing. She switched her life around, she did macrobiotics for a while, she went to some traditional healers, and then she basically went to more of a alkaline diet and raw foods, green drinks, that type of thing. And she is now, she turned 40 this year, I guess. So she still has stage 4 cancer because there's nothing they can really do. They can't take their tumors on her liver and her lungs, but she's someone who is living with cancer, but it's not really doing anything. It's just sitting there. So it has to do with her diet too. Chris Carr. Yeah.
How's that spelled? C-A-R-R?
Yeah. K-R-I-S.
Comment about your thyroidism?
Yeah.
Had one. They had that nuclear reactor go off with the tsunami in Japan. It was a big run on iodine on both coasts. Everybody wanted this iodine for their thyroid, right? But into the same effect, 100 years ago, there was very little radiation in here as far as radio waves, microwaves, all the. We're now inundated anywhere we live, particularly in the urban areas, to 1 million times what it used to be 100 years ago. And that can very well affect your thyroid. So that might be an explanation why you see more of it in certain areas, urban areas particularly.
Yeah. There's also 100,000 chemicals that weren't around.
Yeah, 250,000.
Yeah.
And Thunder Bay is a bowl for all the chemicals and everything from all the mining up north.
And as you sit here, you're being bombarded by all these waves, radio waves.
But in our own country, all the trash from mining is in our rivers, and it ends up in Thunder Bay.
And we here at Thunder Bay also have something that, because we live beside the lake, we've had paper mills, sawmills and all the stuff that's been going into this lake in our bay for like 100 years, right? Now most of the mills are closed, but all that sediment is still there, contaminated. And twice every year, that lake is what you get what is called turnover, where the water goes down, cold water from the top goes down, warm water comes up, and it churns the sediment. And as you see those waves coming, nicely filled with contaminants that blow into the city every spring and every fall. Nice.
Isn't it nice so our immune system gets built up, gets stronger?
If you have one.
We had 2,000 atomic bombs go off.
We get a good Korean
Or-
drink.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's still falling on us.
No, but I mean, it's been all the tests and everything.
It's in your teeth, strontium
Yeah,
90.
well, we got the immune system now, thanks to all that.
Yep.
On the radio today, I don't know if everybody caught it, you mentioned about cancer being the #1 disease in every province in the country now. I don't know if everybody caught that on the radio today.
No.
Turn the radio off.
That's why everyone needs to listen to Chris Carr.
Still being bombarded by waves.
Yeah,
Just sit
you're
there.
right. You're
That's
right.
preventive.
Yeah, because
The next is the smart meters.
with the smart meter should go, yeah.
Go on and on and on, that's what they want
See,
you to
that's
think.
the thing, eh?
People have actually removed those from their houses for that
You
reason.
know, think about it long enough, it's,
Yeah.
it's gonna be a reality.
Smart meters, like your meters.
Like the
Put off
Quick thing.
FM waves,
Yeah, exactly.
much like your computer or your wireless computer, FM waves.
Do you have any people coming to you with cancer or not? Are you starting to see?
At the school that I went to, there was a specific shift for cancer. So I wasn't on that shift. I was more on a sports medicine type shift. So there were a shift specifically for that. In Thunder Bay, I've had 1 or 2 patients that have called me. I don't know if you know who Lynn
Yeah, we know then, yeah.
But she has more of the IV set up, and I think that's something that's really good for cancer. So I tend to, yeah. So I tend to shift people more in her direction
She's very
because she
interested.
has that capability. There's definitely things that I could do. And
Where does she work at?
yeah.
It's on better.
Yeah.
She's also naturopathic.
Yeah.
Yep.
The paper I gave you there, that Dr. Davis, 1929, was healing people for 10 years of cancer with that product. And then we got it back again. And this company took it off the stock exchange and bought it back and is doing it through network marketing because they can't do it off of the shelves. They can't get it out to people. So that was Dr. Davis in Manitoba, and he healed a politician in Saskatchewan, took it to Ottawa. Ottawa buried it in 1943 when they buried Dr. Davis. Well, we know about what they do.
Well, one thing is, if you're drinking green drinks, cucumber, celery, kale, an apple, some ginger, you don't have to buy supplements. That can be your vitamin and nutrition, and it can do things like regulating blood sugar and decreasing illness, helping your immune system. So,
Kale is one of the most important, most nutritious, most,
one of the green vegetables.
the easiest way, if you don't even have to do that, you just barely cook it, strip it, then chop. That's trouble. A lot of people, they first chop their vegetables and then they cook them and then they throw that water down the drain. All the goodness goes down there. You cook them first and then you chop them. And I'm from Holland originally, 55 years ago, and what they had there was very healthy mix, equal amounts of kale and potatoes and an onion. And they mix them and they put some real butter in it and some real cream, not all that new junk what you get nowadays. And people were really healthy with them. And also what they make a lot of, in the wintertime especially, they make 3 equal amounts of potatoes, onions, and carrots. You can cook them all together. If you want, you can put some meat in there. And then you drain the water, you keep it for soup, and you mash them all, and man, is it good. And healthy.
When are we coming over?
I don't cook anymore, that's my problem.
huge amount.
Thank you very much for coming today.
No, I just wanted to ask, what are your hours and everything at Brian?
At Naturopathic Medicine, so the first one on there, I'm there Tuesday afternoons, Wednesdays and Thursdays. So kind of in the middle of the week. And then Mondays and Saturday mornings, I'm at the body.
At Aaron's? Okay,
Yeah.
good enough.
Yeah.
Thanks for
And my email's on the card, not that email.